Coming up tonight on News Center Now, DHHS has been silent since the murder of a 10-year-old girl in Stockton Springs. A newly discovered report reveals the department has a history of failing to follow protocol in child abuse cases.
And we've passed the peak, but the flu is still a problem.
I think this has been an extremely busy flu season.
Why health experts are urging you to get the flu shot if you haven't, even this late in the season.
This mama bear's not giving up, so we're going to do what we have to do.
The diagnosis was a shock, and so was the support that followed. How a community is rallying around a young mother.
This is News Center Now.
And I'm Christina Rex in for Lee Goldberg tonight. The murder of a 10-year-old girl last week outraged hundreds of Mainers who feel the Department of Health and Human Services failed to protect her. Marissa Kennedy allegedly suffered months of physical abuse before she died of battered child syndrome. And neighbors say they reported the suspected abuse multiple times.
Tonight, a newly discovered report shows failure to follow child abuse protocol is a recurring problem at DHHS.
Assessment practice and safety planning continue to be at the forefront of recommendations made to DHHS this year. It's an annual report filed by the Child Welfare Services Ombudsman, a person hired to conduct neutral investigations into complaints against DHHS. The 2017 report shows that DHHS failed to follow policy for multiple child abuse cases. Reports from past years show that this failure to follow protocol is an ongoing issue. The report also shows that DHHS failed to recognize when kids were at risk in their own parents' home. In Marissa Kennedy's case, court documents show her parents confessed they beat her for months. Bangor police were called to her parents' house at least 6 times. Her former school in Bangor reported the suspected abuse to DHHS more than once. She stopped showing up to her new school in Searsport in November. DHHS has been silent so far, blaming state privacy laws. In recent years, reports of physical child abuse in Maine have nearly doubled. The department was required to respond to the investigators' report and said it would focus on following protocol, including monthly face-to-face meetings with families where there's suspected abuse. And we reached out to the investigators' office and to DHHS today, but we did not hear back. There's a vigil happening tonight in honor of Marissa Kennedy's life, and we'll take you there live at 5:30.
Okay. All right, we are checking in now with the forecast because feels almost like spring a little bit out there.
Yeah, but that's just a big lie, turns out.
Exactly.
Some winter weather on the way, Keith.
Newsroom morale has crashed since I started working on a snowfall map over there. People have been walking by, all kinds of inappropriate stuff. We're going to get to that, but first, it's still amazing that we're seeing the wind gusts from our storm on Friday. We still have a pressure gradient wind, and that has wind gusts in the 30s today, still 24 miles an hour in Portland and 17 in Rockland. There it is, same storm system that affected us on Friday, just sitting way to the south and east. But to give you some perspective, typically when things move normally in the atmosphere, a storm that affected us on Friday might be in Germany by now. I mean, it should be clear across the Atlantic at this point. It's still stuck because the blocking pattern is still in place, and that becomes important when we talk about our next storm system, which is just starting to get going across the northern plains. This storm will branch down to the south and then move towards us for Wednesday night and into Thursday. In between, we have actually an uneventful evening and day tomorrow. Jess and I were working on the snowfall map in the weather office, and we're like, oh yeah, there's a day tomorrow in there as well, I guess. It'll be partly cloudy, relatively quiet, temperatures in the upper 30s, and then snow moves in starting probably late morning on Wednesday for southern Maine. Most of us, though, late afternoon and into Wednesday night. And watch how this occurs. Here comes the cloud cover, here comes the snow on Wednesday, and then it really ramps up on Wednesday night. And I think for a period of time, late Wednesday night into Thursday morning, it will be ripping snow at the rate of 2 to 3 inches an hour in places. That's where we're going to do our heaviest accumulation. Thursday morning will be tough pretty much statewide as the snow continues as the low sits offshore, and I think it'll be snowing into Thursday evening as well. So that leads to the million-dollar question of how much snow we're talking about. Believe it or not, I'm literally still working on that map, so I'll show it to you in a few minutes. Guys?
All right, what a tease, Keith. Thanks. The nor'easter that battered the New England coast is revealing a shipwreck's remains on Short Sands Beach in York. The York Police Department posting photos today showing the skeleton of a ship that's believed to be more than 160 years old. The Maine Historic Preservation Commission believes the 51-foot-long hull dates to the era between the Revolutionary and Civil Wars.
The shipwreck is normally covered by sand, but became a curiosity when it was uncovered in 1958. Since then, it's been seen several other times, most recently 5 years ago. Before that, it was last seen after the Patriots' Day nor'easter in 2007. The remains have been mapped and identified by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission as an archaeological site. News Center Maine will have more on this story coming up tonight at 6. It appears that flu season here in Maine has peaked, but that doesn't mean it's past. It's still widespread in the state.
So if you think the ship has sailed for getting that flu shot, think again. Health officials say it's not too late to get the vaccine. This flu has been responsible for 55 deaths and more than 1,000 hospitalizations in Maine this season. That's according to the latest numbers from the Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention.
We're beginning to see a decline in both visits and in hospitalizations, so that's encouraging.
Maine Medical Center epidemiologist Dr. August Valenti joins the chorus of health experts, still advising people to get that flu shot.
We're still encouraging people to get it because it still mitigates the disease if you get it.
So you may be asking, if we're past the peak, why get the shot?
There are other circulating strains of influenza.
Flu season typically ends sometime between April and May.
I have a feeling that this season may go a little longer.
Dr. Valenti says it's hard to say if this will be one of the worst flu seasons to date.
I would say that it's the busiest flu season that we've seen here for a while.
Busy, meaning a lot of people seeking treatment. The Maine CDC says we're at a time when strains of flu can mutate from one type to another, and the state is still at widespread status, with lab results confirming influenza cases in more than half of Maine's counties. As of last week, the majority of positive influenza tests appear to be in York, Cumberland, and Penobscot counties. Dr. Valenti says vaccination remains the best protection against the flu. It's also important to wash your hands frequently, keep your hands away from your face, and stay home if you are sick.
Keep your germs to yourself.
And we should have a better understanding of the current state of this flu season tomorrow when the Maine CDC says the latest flu numbers are due to be released.
We're not going back. So the whole idea of women trending, no trending. African Americans trending, no trending. It changes now.
You can take her trophy, but you cannot take her spirit. Best Actress winner Frances McDormand gave a rousing speech at last night's Oscars and then had her award stolen.
Luckily, the LAPD says they found the statue and arrested the suspected thief. Our own Mark Barger has a wrap of everything else that happened last night at the Academy Awards.
We can't let bad behavior slide anymore. The world is watching us.
Viewers saw an Oscars telecast that alternated between atoning for bad behavior.
Slowly, a new path has emerged.
And still honoring artists as it has for 90 years.
To win it for playing Winston makes it doubly special.
Jordan Peele.
Newer talents also shine, including Get Out writer-director Jordan Peele, the first African American to win Best Original Screenplay.
This is about paying it forward to the young people who might not believe that they could achieve the highest honor.
Even NBA legend Kobe Bryant achieved a new honor, the Oscar for Best Animated Short.
I feel better than winning a championship, to be honest with you. I swear I do.
That winning feeling forced Guillermo del Toro to ditch his planned speech. Best Picture and Best Director for The Shape of Water overwhelmed him.
And I pulled out the paper and I couldn't read it, and I was sweating into my eyes, and I started just speaking from the heart.
The moment on stage was one supporting actress winner Allison Janney never expected.
At a certain point, I had given up thinking this would happen for me.
The Best Actress win for Frances McDormand was the second of her career, and she's intent on bringing change to Hollywood.
The whole idea of women trending, no trending. African Americans trending, no trending. It changes now.
Next year's Academy Awards may demonstrate just how much. Mark Barger, NBC News.
So we were talking off camera that we're not really into movies,
No,
going
I'm
to
not
watch
crazy
them?
into the Oscars,
Do you think you'll use the Oscars as like a guide of what to go
That's
and
what I
see?
actually usually do every year is I watch and then I go see the movies that did well. I will say I watched last night just to see the performance from The Greatest Showman.
Oh, you've been loving
this. And they took until 10:30 to perform, so
Did
I
you
ended
wait?
up watching the whole show by accident, just
That's
waiting
good.
for that.
You and many others, I'm sure,
Oh,
waited
for sure
for that performance.
All right, coming up.
When I walked in that hospital, I really thought I was getting a death sentence, but what they gave me was hope, actually.
A Maine community rallies around one of its own after she got an unexpected life-changing diagnosis. That story coming up.
Coming up tonight on 207, the story of a teenager who sparked a 24-hour ski-a-thon. Think you could hit the slopes all day and all night? Plus, the music of Iron City Preachers on 207 at 7.
Trouble seems to find me.
Some big changes are on tap for UMaine basketball. Bob Walsh is out as the head coach of the men's team, and the university is turning to a familiar face as his replacement.
News Center Maine's Tennyson Coleman is live at UMaine with the latest on the coaching carousel. Hey, Tennyson.
Hey guys, how's it going? That's right. The university revealed today that Coach Bob Walsh would not return to the team next season. And now the university is turning to former UMaine women's basketball coach Richard Barron to lead the men's squad. In 6 seasons, Barron helped turn the women's team around, coaching them to consecutive American East regular season championships, as well as appearances in the women's NIT. However, he stepped away from the team in 2017 for health reasons, which led to Amy Vachon taking over as interim head coach and now the full-time coach for the women. Barron was introduced as the men's head coach at a press conference today in Orono, and it's no secret this team has struggled to win games over the last decade, but Barron only sees that as a challenge he accepts.
I'm very confident in their ability to win. It doesn't mean that we get it all right away. And for me, these next few weeks are going to be drinking from a fire hose. This is going to be a lot in a short period of time. But the chemistry that they have, how hard they work, those are qualities that take years to develop in some programs, and we already got it. I'm not going to get into predicting, records and things like that. That's silly, but I'm excited about it.
Coach Barron says he's eager to take over, and as always, the first order of business is just getting to know the players on the team. Guys, back to you.
Awesome, Tennyson. Thank you.
All right, Nor'easter number 1 is over.
And it pains me to say it, but Nor'easter number 2 on the way. Your full forecast is next.
When you hear the term lung cancer, your mind probably thinks of a person who had smoked at some point in their life.
But that's not always the case, and one woman from Hebron is preparing for the fight of her life.
Just because you don't smoke doesn't mean it couldn't be lung cancer.
That's a message that Amy Richard is hoping to pass along to as many people as possible. It's also something she and her family are now living with every day.
Well, my son doesn't know. He knows I have a boo-boo from the surgery, and he'll go up and kiss it.
Amy, who's a nurse at Central Maine Medical Center, had a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. The Winthrop High School grad assumed it was an upper respiratory infection. After multiple doctor's appointments and procedures, it was discovered that the 41-year-old had growths along her chest wall and lung, a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis, and a trip to Mass General.
When I walked in that hospital, I really thought I was getting a death sentence, but what they gave me was hope, actually, that given my history of being relatively young, being a non-smoker, taking care of myself, that it probably was a genetic mutation, and that there are these new targeted therapies and immunotherapies out there that you don't necessarily need to go through, miserable chemotherapy or radiation.
Amy just started a targeted therapy. She takes an oral tablet once a day and will get rechecked in 6 weeks to see if it's working.
It can be uncomfortable at points during the day. I move a certain way and I'm reminded you have lung cancer all over again, and I still can't believe it. It still doesn't make sense, even though I know it's happening. This mama bear's not giving up, so I'm gonna do what we have to do.
Amy's husband Chris has regularly taken part in the annual Celebration of Courage hockey tournament. This weekend, though, his family is the beneficiary, and it won't just be about raising money.
We're gonna have, lung cancer screening table and smoking cessation, and that was the other thing too, is the stigma on lung cancer is so huge that we need people to know that it's also a non-smoking cancer. And none of us are out of that circle of people that it can affect.
The support in this community has been amazing, isn't even the word. It's overwhelming. It's honestly, I think, given me more of the strength that I need to go on and keep fighting for myself and my family.
Now, the hockey tournament will be held this Saturday at Norway Savings Bank Arena in Auburn. You can find a link with all that information by going to the Now section of our website.
Now, March is Red Cross Month, and New Center Maine is joining forces with the organization to host a blood drive.
We're asking our viewers to be someone's hero by donating blood or platelets or becoming a volunteer. Our blood drive is set for Wednesday, March 28th, and we'll have locations in Portland, Lewiston, Rockland, Waterville, and Bangor. For more information on how to make an appointment to donate, head to our website.
All right, so
ladies.
I guess you might as well just skip over tomorrow, right?
That was a long exhale. Is that any indication of what we can expect?
I think when you get into March, it's really just the skiers left who want the snow. I think, but too bad.
Okay.
Too bad, you're all getting it.
Either way. Let's start with the wind still. Noticeably windy everywhere. Gutner was down at 2 lights down in Cape Elizabeth. Huge waves still. They flooded again on this high tide. What an amazing storm that we had on Friday. Still exerting its influence over us right now. There it is, sitting and spinning way to the east of Virginia and North Carolina. Just shows you the upper level blocking though, and that's something to keep in mind when we talk about our next storm, because it's going to block it not quite like that, but it makes the chances of it missing very, very low on Wednesday night, Thursday. Here it is right here, northern part, southern part. The southern part is the one that's going to disconnect and move towards us as a nor'easter for Wednesday night and into Thursday. Relatively quiet in between. Tonight, partly cloudy, temperatures drop into the 20s. Tomorrow is actually a pretty good looking day, temperatures in the 40s in spots and partly cloudy conditions. Then clouds start to thicken up here on Tuesday night and more so into Wednesday. Now, during the first half of the day on Wednesday, I don't think we're going to have any real problems. Maybe some light snow over southern Maine, but a lot of us get to lunchtime and beyond before the snow really moves in. But once it moves in during the afternoon, and it starts ripping snow overnight. And you know, the way that this system comes together, it's going to put down 2 to 3 inches an hour at its peak overnight Wednesday in through Thursday morning. And that is real whiteout stuff. And there's that low sitting to the south of us, getting into the Gulf of Maine. So unlike the last one, it gets right into our latitude here on Thursday morning, and it's continuing to snow all the way across the state, still snowing heavily through the morning commute on Thursday, in through Thursday afternoon, in through early Thursday night, before finally tapering off late Thursday night into Friday morning. So it's a relatively long duration, but the peak of the storm is Wednesday night through Thursday morning. Winds will be a factor with this as well, but not like our last storm system. So the winds will be coming in here about 40 to 45 miles an hour at times on Thursday morning. That is in kind of your general nor'easter range. So it's bad, but it's not terrible. All right, let's get to what everybody wants to know. 10 to 18, you know, obviously we're still pretty early on this storm system, but it looks like a big one to me. It looks like we have a lot of moisture. Temperatures should be conducive to mainly snow. And watch the coastline if it stays all snow, because it'll be a paste. And if you get 15 or 16 inches of paste, you're not going to have power very long. So that's something we need to keep in mind for Wednesday night and Thursday. So, you know, could it change? Could it reduce? Sure, that's what weather's about, but it looks pretty dead on to me. After that, though, if you don't like the snow, we do have spring forward, so we'll have later sunsets, which may allow me to be in the daylight for my snow live shot again on next Tuesday when another storm may hit us.
I was wondering,
so,
where's the jackpot going to be? Where are you going to be this time?
You know what? I think the coast could be it this time.
Yeah.
You know, traditionally it tends to be out towards Sebago Lake in that area, but I think it'll be closer to the coast this time.
Okay. All right, Keith.
We'll see.
Thanks so much.
All right, coming up at 5:30, a board member from School District SAD 17 is under fire after racist and crude social media posts have come to light. We'll tell you about that.
And coastal communities are racing against the clock, trying to clean up some from this past weekend storm, preparing to get hit again for another big nor'easter. We'll have all that and more coming up in the next half hour.
News Center Now will be right back.
All right, today's Brain Drops is kind of fun. depending on what you think
kind
is
of scary if you don't like spiders.
Right. Check this little guy out here. So it's a spider, and now its nickname is Moroccan flick-flack spider, or the cartwheeling spider. So what happens here is apparently when it's being chased, it can double its speed, land speed here, by doing cartwheels successfully, as you can see, and it gets away from its prey that way. It's really creepy, right?
I
it's
also have done that when I'm being chased.
Yeah, I've seen you do that across the newsroom.
Yeah.
It's found in Morocco, and it also is nocturnal, so it really only comes out at night, apparently, unless it's being filmed.
That's the only time I do flips is at nighttime, too.
Yeah. So I guess this is a mechanized version of the spider. But anyways, I thought that was pretty cool because people are so afraid of spiders, and I thought, what better than spiders that do cartwheels? I think that would really help a lot.
Okay, I have to tell you something. I found, I think, a carcass of a dead spider inside my snowboard that has been in storage for
It's
years.
like a little home for it.
Yeah, well, I was checking out the bindings, make sure they weren't rusted or anything, and
At least
there
it
you
wasn't
go.
still alive. Once I lived in Georgia, I got over the whole spider thing. Let's go to Max 1 if we can. I want to talk a little bit about the storm if we have extra time, which I believe that we do.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pretty big storm system, as you may see
I'm
here.
hoping I can use that snowboard.
Yeah, I would say so. Now, as you ladies heard, there was an ongoing, like, we basically negotiate in the weather office, you know, how we're going to come in with this forecast. And being 3 days out, you know, typically you might not start with the range, but when it's going to be a storm of this size, I just feel like you got to give people an idea what's going to happen. And as I mentioned, we definitely have to watch the coastline here for that pace possibility, because when it's right around freezing, or maybe even a little above freezing, say 33 degrees, that's really heavy snow. And so although we don't have any leaves on the trees, anything like that, if we get that snow plus some gusty winds, which I think we have the possibility for, we may be looking at power outages there. So that's something to think about. It gets more fluffy in nature as you get into the mountains. So they may get their 15 or 16 inches of fluffy stuff, which they would love because they've had a little bit of a tough season so far.
Good for the recreation up there, outdoor sports.
I don't know if this is true for everyone, though, but a range like that, I mean, for me, when it's over 8 inches, I'm like, okay, just send all the
dial
snow.
it up. Yeah, I think we put the high end just for people to know that there's a chance it could be.
Right.
I mean, if it gets up there, that's the biggest storm of the season. 10 is good. 18 is like really something.
Yeah.
And you know my theory on this. If we're going to do a storm, let's do it.
Go big or go home.
Let's do it. I didn't buy those goggles for skiing. Okay?
Exactly.
So we'll keep an eye on this. Again, the timing, the worst of it is Wednesday night in through Thursday morning.
Okay, that's the timing. Good time to prepare. All right, Keith, thanks so much. Stick around. News Center Maine at 5:30 starts right now.